Throw the slack, you fucking moron!
Hi, and welcome to Screen Share, a movie podcast about scream sharing. Sharing in a scream.
Sharing in a scream.
I'm Calder and Wood, and this is Adam Cook.
And I'm Adam Cook.
If you'd like to, let's start this episode off with sharing our primal screams.
Okay.
And maybe our primal roars, too, if you want.
Like
if
our most instinctive roars, our screams?
Like when you're trying to prove to your roommates that you're the alpha.
All right,
make
you go
that
first.
noise.
That's pretty good.
You? Beta. So this episode's about Scream. Dude, what the fuck was that?
I don't know why that got me.
Oh, jeez. Okay.
We're on another one today, TBH.
And there's the baby talk.
For those who
So
don't know,
Scream-
that stands for to be honest.
Jeez, man. Scream. I like this movie a lot.
Yeah, it's a good movie.
Came out in 1996.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say, I don't like horror movies generally. Like, the only horror movies I've really come to enjoy are, like, Get Out and It.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, those are kind of different.
Sure.
Like, Get Out's not really a horror
It's like a
movie.
thriller.
It's like a psychological thriller more.
Yeah.
And, like, It is more like... I don't know. It's not I feel like it's not traditional horror movie. It's just once in a while you get scared by a creepy clown. But, like, it's more of, like, visual horror than it is, like, I'm scared. Maybe I'm wrong, but...
I think it's just more like there's a bit of an adventure story to that one.
Yeah.
So I think you can kind of focus on the adventure. The scares are, like, the set pieces in the adventure where, like, Indiana Jones fighting some Nazis
Yeah.
is, like, Pennywise opening his mouth 8 times and eating a
biting a
child's
child.
ass.
Yeah. Yeah, well, like, this is probably the most traditional horror movie I've watched from start to finish.
Okay.
So I was intrigued.
And this one's... We'll get into a bit of the history of horror, but this one's also not extremely traditional. So let me
Sure.
get into a bit of information about this movie.
Sure.
First, I'd like to start off with a quiz. When do you think this came out? Like, not the year, but time of year.
You would think around Halloween, but because you're asking it, it's probably a weird question, so I'm going to guess February.
Christmas.
Well,
Came out at Christmas. The
Interesting.
Weinsteins, because this is a Miramax movie, one of the early hits for... Actually, it's not Miramax. It's Dimension, but that's
it's
Bob Weinstein.
Okay.
Came out at Christmas because they thought it'd be a hit, and it was. This was a smash hit. So... Let's get into a bit about the director, Wes Craven. Do you know that name?
No.
Okay, so he's one of the more classic horror directors. He passed, I think, maybe 7 years ago, I think in 2015.
Wait, he made this movie in the 90s, and he only passed high school in
Dude,
28.
shut your mouth, man. You know that's not what I was saying.
He only passed his driver's test in 2018?
Don't ask about the tables.
Tables!
So
We're cutting that out. That's so irrelevant.
So Wes Craven started his career. He was like one of the big horror guys in the early 70s, mid 70s. So his first movie was Last House on the Left, the first one. They've remade a lot of the movies, like some of the movies he's made.
Okay.
Then he did The Hills Have Eyes, another one that was remade. And there were 2 low budget, but performed pretty well. I think they cost both under $1 million each, made like 10 or something.
Okay.
Which is good for 75, like late 70s. That's good. Because, like, you know, $1 million then is like
$700 million now.
a condo in Toronto now. Not really sure what that means. But then his biggest early hit was Nightmare on Elm Street.
Oh, he did this.
He was the
Nightmare
first
on
one.
Elm Street.
Yeah.
Because they reference Nightmare on Elm
Yes,
Street.
they do. And there's a pretty salty one that we'll get into. I don't know what a salty reference is, but...
Do you mean spicy?
I guess.
'Cause
So
that's like the opposite.
the first Nightmare on Elm Street came out in 1984. Cost
Okay.
$1.1 million, made $57 million in 1984, which is huge. That is, on a $3 million budget, making $164 million today.
That's ridiculous.
It's insane.
That's a good.
That's
a big time.
Yeah. And it's like, sometimes when I look at like old box office totals for movies, I'm like, oh, this shit made like $100 million, like, and it was like the biggest hit. Like, what are you talking about? But you have to remember that that's like adjusted, probably like 500 or whatever.
Well, it's like how technically I'm pretty sure Titanic is still the highest grossing film of all time.
Yeah.
If you take inflation. And I think Sound of Music also.
Gone with the Wind is
Sorry,
also
Gone with
high.
the Wind is what I meant.
Gone with the Wind is high.
Not Sound of Music.
But then Wes Craven kind of takes a dip in his career for like basically until this movie comes out, Scream, which is like him returning onto the scene. But Scream's an interesting movie because as Wes Craven's career dips, so does the sort of slasher craze, yeah, where you have the first Halloween in like the late 70s. You've got Friday the 13th pretty much after that.
Yeah.
You got Texas Chainsaw Massacre in the 70s as well.
Yeah.
And then they start making sequels. And then the sequels aren't as good. Like Halloween 2 is considered a good sequel, but then Halloween 3 has like no Michael Myers. Friday the 13th is always kind of schlock. Nightmare on Elm Street, there's like 7 Nightmare on Elm Streets, and none of them after the first are like particularly good. Like some people will say they're good, but like wider consensus is like they're kind of just B movies.
Yeah.
But then this movie comes out in 1996 and sort of reinvigorates the slasher thing and reinvigorates like horror as a genre because it had kind of died. In the 80s, there was a lot of like adult prestige dramas. There was a lot of like the action movies that we like, Die Hard,
Mission Impossible.
Not really. Mission Impossible started in like the 99 or something.
Okay, I didn't really
late
know.
90s. But like the show I think was on then.
Sure.
So this movie was written by Kevin Williamson.
Okay.
Original title was Scary Movie. But he was basically like,
Interesting.
yeah. He's basically like, I just need to fucking write something that's creative in my own way. And he took inspiration from like the Gainesville Ripper. So it's basically like, oh, I'll make a movie about a slasher and whatever. And then he put this twist of like including some meta commentary and like kind of the Tarantino thing where like in Reservoir Dogs they're talking about like what do they talk about at the start of that? Oh, Madonna being a virgin or whatever, like a virgin, where he kind of puts that into this horror genre where they'll reference scary movies and like make pop culture references and like kind of talk like real teenagers. And
it's kind of refreshing. Like obviously it's a different era from when I grew up, but like it's kind of I mean we'll get into it, but like some of the characters are just like unbearable. But like but like when you're seeing them all hang out and like they're all crowded around the TV and they're talking about a movie. They're making references to people, making jokes about how people look like certain celebrities. Like it just kind of feels like I could see that being a really big like, oh, this is what movies are gonna do now once you see this movie.
Yeah, so like it basically brings back the old stuff, the slasher thing, but flips it and gives it a new tone, which is the reason why this movie was so successful. It cost $15 million to make, made 173. I think that's adjusted. Yeah, and it's the highest grossing slasher adjusted for inflation ever. So when Kevin Williamson wrote this, he wrote it with 2 and 3 and like pitched them like he had the script for 1 and then was like, I also got these outlines for 2 and 3.
Okay.
So, and 2 and 3 are like, you know, there's something to them, but they're not great.
Okay.
So initially,
Is Scream 4 good?
Scream 4 is okay. I like Scream 5 better, and I'm excited for 6. 4 is like, it's got not Emma Roberts. Emma Roberts?
Maybe.
Is that the one who isn't in Harry Potter? That's Emma Watson. Yeah, it's Emma Roberts.
Emma Watson and Emma Thompson are both in Harry Potter.
It's not Emma
Roberts
Thompson.
is not in Harry Potter.
It's Emma Roberts then. She's in Scream 4, I think, with Hayden Panettiere or whatever. I don't fucking know. The Scream 4 is like just fine. I haven't watched it
Wait,
enough.
as of this episode coming out, when is Scream 6 coming out?
This weekend.
Nice.
Yeah.
Get out there, kids.
It looks actually pretty interesting because they haven't really. Yeah, I don't think they've done one outside of Woodsboro, which is
Also, I'm gonna kind of do a side note that I only just thought of, and it's kind of unrelated. Wasn't Chris Rock gonna be in a Saw movie?
He was.
Did it come out?
Yeah.
Was it bad?
Yeah, it got bad reviews. I never watched it though.
Okay.
I'm not a big Saw guy.
Because I just remember seeing that and people being like, "Whoa, Chris Rock's in a Saw movie."
I thought that too, but it's like like Saw. Saw is like a different thing.
That's almost like
it's just
like
torture
porn.
Yeah. Where I don't really like it all that much. Where it's like this has jokes. Like even some of the shitty movies that came out and were inspired by this, like Final Destination and like I Know What You Did Last Summer and all those other ones are like goofy. Saw is just like, I don't want to watch a guy cut his fucking leg off.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, because like honestly, the points of Scream that make me the most uncomfortable or like I just don't like, which is like kind of the point. But like the moments that do that the most are the moments where the protagonist is kind of put in a position where no matter what decision they make, they're gonna be in danger or in a bad spot. And that's kind of just what Saw is. Like,
yeah.
Like in this movie, when it's like, if you hang up, I'm gonna kill you. If you do this, then your boyfriend dies, or like whatever. And then it's just like, okay, there's no good option for me right now, and that's very stressful and like it feels unfair, which is kind of the point.
I think you're just describing what a horror movie is.
Yeah, but then Saw is literally just exclusively that, where it's like you're stuck in a room, your options are either die or cut your leg off, which is like you said, I just spat everywhere.
Or make Wahlburgers.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think most people notice that like tertiary plot in a lot of horror movies, but like
making the Wahlburgers?
Well, yeah, it's like any movie, if you really discuss it thoroughly, can just be completely debunked by being like, they could have just made Wahlburgers.
Honestly, you're telling the truth.
Thank you.
And it's like one of these things where it's like, make the fucking burger, Sydney.
Yeah.
Like, make the burger.
Like, oh, you're running away from this murderer who may have also killed your mom.
If you give him a big full tummy.
Yeah, make some Wahlburgers.
How's he gonna kill you?
Chuck his mouth full
of
the Wahlburgers.
Oh, whoa, okay. I thought.
And he's gonna gobble it up, and he's gonna have too big of a tummy to continue.
Say gabagool?
Gabagool.
So Drew Barrymore was initially supposed to play Sydney, but because of scheduling conflicts, they moved her to Casey Becker. What were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say I thought she was gonna be the main character until she died.
Well, that's the thing with this movie is they used her in a lot of the marketing initially when it was coming out, being like, because she was a big star.
Sure.
I guess she still is. She's got her fucking show or whatever.
I mean, at this point, she's just one of the actresses where it's like, oh, she was a star.
Yeah.
You know.
But she was used as like Drew Barrymore in Scream. But then they kill her at the start so that you feel like almost anyone can die because she's a big star.
Yeah.
And she was supposed to be the main character. So like, what's going to happen now?
I kind of like that. Like the idea of going into a movie and thinking you know what to expect. And it not only is it like, oh, wow, like halfway through the movie, she died, unfortunately. It's like, no, before the title screen, she's gutted and hung from a tree.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow. I was completely taken off guard there.
And it's like a bit of a reference to Psycho, which this is a spoiler for Psycho, but halfway through, Janet Leigh, I think it's Janet Leigh, gets killed by Norman Bates in the shower scene. Like, that's halfway through the movie. That's not the end of the movie.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a thing like that where you're like, what the fuck? The protagonist is dead? They're supposed to live throughout the whole movie and have a happy ending.
Yeah.
So I think that's just a great touch where it's like now if you're watching it, it's kind of been done a little bit.
Yeah, but like even because like I had not seen Scream, and I've seen a lot of like current movies, and I was still surprised by it. And I think it's because at the beginning I was like, when Drew Barrymore's about to be stabbed,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, and she's gonna roll away or kick him or something.
Yeah, and then
get
she's
away.
gonna get away.
And then she gets stabbed and killed.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh, what? So then later, when, what's the main character's name?
Sydney.
When Sydney is like trying to escape and almost getting hit, I'm like, she could get hit.
Yeah, she might die.
She could just get killed.
Yeah.
So I think that was a great way to do it. Honestly, like, I think that helps the movie.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of lucky for them that scheduling conflicts happened. Although I do think Drew Barrymore would have like done great in the other role as well. But I think she played, because the first girl is a bit more like, ow, what's going on?
She's a little more like Tatum.
Yeah.
Later in the movie where she's kind of like, what are you doing? Like, yeah. She's a little more flirty than Sydney is.
I don't know what the...
I'm not sure if it's flirty, but
I think
like...
I don't know if this is the right word, but she's a little more airy, a little more floaty.
Yeah.
Where she like when she talks about how she's seen horror movies a million times, and I know she's in a stressful situation, but then the killer is like, who's the killer
in Friday the 13th?
In Friday the 13th, and she's like, I don't know. It's like, yes, you do. I know you don't want to play the game.
Jason Voorhees, and then she's wrong.
It's her mother. It's his mother.
But like, I don't know. I think that the two actresses that played the two, I know that Drew Barrymore's not like one of the main girls.
Yeah.
But like, I'd say that those two are the main protagonist.
I guess, yeah.
Because Drew Barrymore's the protagonist for about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But like, I think that those actresses fill those specific roles better than the other would, I think.
Do you want to play a game?
Sure.
How's that catchphrase?
Honestly, here's the thing. I feel weird ranking it because it's not yours.
That's true. What about this one?
Oh, not another dookie in my tookies.
You said that the other day in an actual conversation. I wrote it down.
Yeah.
Oh, no, you said, oh, you were trying to shove your finger in my ear, and I said, be careful, you might get something on your finger. And then you said, as long as it's a dookie number tookie, I'll be happy. So, ranking that, I'll give it a 6. I honestly think anything with dookie in it's kind of funny. Honestly, I might... You know what? I'm going to bump that up to a 7.
So a good thing that I like about this movie a lot...
I just gave you your highest ranking and you're not
yeah,
even gonna...
but I don't like that people know I said as long as it's a dookie tookie, I'll be happy.
You want me to cut that out?
No, it's fine. I just like had an out-of-body experience and went fight or flight.
Where you realize someone might realize you say dookie, tookie.
So I think it's something that this movie does really well is that it's kind of like a whodunit. I said this to you yesterday when we were watching it, where like the real intrigue of the movie, whereas like with Halloween, with Friday the 13th, like in a way Friday the 13th is like there's some intrigue as to like who this person is.
Sure.
But there's no thing at the end where it's like, here's their motivation after the first one. In the first one, it's like Jason's mother and she's like, my son drowned because he was bullied. And then she dies, but then Jason's like dead hand comes out of the water. I'm spoiling this for you, but you're never gonna see this shit. For Halloween, it's kind of like, who is this? But we know it's Michael Myers. They talk about Michael Myers escaping from the asylum. What's her name in Halloween?
Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah, Jamie Lee doesn't know it's Michael Myers, but like Professor Loomis or Dr. Loomis, who has his name referenced in this movie. I don't know if you noticed. Billy Loomis, the boyfriend, same last name. he knows it's Mike Myers and he's chasing Mike Myers. And there's no like, what is his motivation? It's like, this guy's a sick fuck.
He just wants to kill.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas this one, genuinely, there were moments where I thought it could have been any of them except for Sydney.
Yeah. You're like, it's not Sydney for sure, because we see everything that she does.
They do like temporarily have some characters be like, what if it's her?
Yeah.
But it's like, yeah, it's not really believable. But every time it was like, I kept being like, I think it's this person.
Mm-hmm.
And then they like do a really obvious hint that it's that person. I'm like, well, maybe
It's like the Henry
not that person then.
So an interesting one is Henry Winkler, because I don't think at any point you're like, oh, it's him.
Yeah.
Because he's just the principal.
Yeah.
But he's so creepy. Like I don't know if he's good in the movie, but he's so creepy in the movie where you're like, it could be this guy. Because the first scene he's in, he like grabs it under Sydney's chin and he's like, are you doing okay?
And they literally do a cutaway to I think it's to Dewey.
Mm-hmm. And he's like,
the younger cop, and he literally is like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like he's like, what is this? What?
Yeah.
Like, and then later, when he catches the two in the costumes running around the hallways, he's literally like, they're literally
Get
like,
his scissors.
sorry, or he expels them, and then they're like, you can't do this, and then he gets his scissors, the sound effects of which were way too loud.
Yeah.
He was just like, shing, shing, and I'm like, it's a tiny pair of scissors. But then they're like, we're sorry, and then he's like, you guys should be cut up and gutted and hung in a tree. And I'm like, okay, it can't be him because that's like too obvious. And then he was stabbed.
I think Sydney is sort of, this is a different topic now.
Sure.
I have a lot of things that I wrote down for this movie because I love this movie.
We can just scramble around.
One thing that I think is kind of changing now, but I feel like Sydney is a character, and Neve Campbell, who plays her, I don't think we've mentioned her yet, but she's really, like, she's good in the movie.
She's good.
She doesn't get, like, kind of put up there with the other final girls in horror, or, like, strong female characters kind of thing, like the Ripleys and the Laurie Strodes and, like,
sure,
that kind of thing. And I think she kind of should, because if you watch through all the movies, like,
is she in multiple of them?
She's in all of them.
Oh, nice.
Except for this newest one coming out, because I think there was a contract dispute. But she's in the other. Actually, I don't know if she's in 4. I haven't seen 4 enough, but she's in the next. She's in 2, 3, and 5.
Okay.
Which I think you should watch. I think you'd like them.
Okay.
They get a little sillier as they go on.
Nice.
But I think she's kind of like,
she's pretty badass
in that
honestly.
league. Yeah.
I mean, like,
now, Ghostface is a bumbling fuck.
Yeah, I did write that down. Actually, you know what? I didn't really think about it because I literally wrote down that Ghostface is just a complete goof.
Yeah.
Like she like very lightly throws something at him and he trips and falls on his head. But like I'm wondering if, because once the killers were revealed and it was revealed that it was her boyfriend and Shaggy, like
Stu and Billy.
Like once it's revealed that it was them, I kind of immediately was like, I wonder if you could go back and kind of like keep track of where those two characters are and when, and like who was in the costume trying to kill her at which points.
You kind of can.
Because if you can, I wonder if every time that Ghostface is like a bumbling goof, if that's when it's Stu.
Because, that would make sense.
Because Stu is kind of a bumbling goof.
There are varying levels of, like, threatening.
Yeah. Like, sometimes he's, like, jumping at her and going, like, crazy. Mm-hmm. That's probably Billy.
Yeah.
But there's also times where he's just, like, running and getting hit and tripping. Shit. That's probably Stu.
That would make sense. And Matthew Lillard, I think, is incredible in this movie.
Actually, this is an important thing that I wrote down. Because I wrote down multiple times that I hated him.
Yeah, of course you hate him.
I know I hate him, but, like, it was just it was, like, unbelievable to me that someone could be that hated, or like, that hateable, sorry. Because he just has literally zero empathy at all, zero social intelligence,
well, he's
zero
a psychopath.
Emotional. Well, that's the thing. That's why I wrote down that, like, Stu doesn't really work as a psychotic goofball, because that's what he kind of is. He's just like a goofball who's just a psycho. But it doesn't really work because that's not believable as a person. But then he's revealed as the killer, and he immediately becomes more likable, which is weird.
Yeah.
Because then it's like, oh, he's a goofy psychopath.
Yeah.
It's not that, I don't know, him being like a bumbling goof who has no emotions or empathy or anything kind of makes it hard to see him as like I kind of just hated it.
Yeah. Okay.
But then as soon as he was revealed as the killer and then he's being stabbed, he's like, oh man,
I'm feeling woozy here.
I'm getting a little woozy here. Oh, come on, Billy, that hurts. I'm like, this guy's he's just insane.
Yeah.
And it immediately, I think it works way better. So I think if I watched it again, I would enjoy his character for the first half more, knowing that. I think it's just first time watch. It was like, it's not, which maybe that should have been a tell that it was him. But it just felt too
here's
obvious.
another thing. Like, we've both known a guy who's like too much. And
Sure.
in essence, like, because no one's getting fucking slashed in our school.
Sure.
We've known guys in high school that are like too much, too all the time.
I mean, one could argue that I've got one sitting beside me right now.
Don't say that! So they tested a bunch of different masks while they were shooting that first opening scene. So they'd have to do like 4 different versions of each shot with Ghostface because they were testing out 4 masks because Bob Weinstein was being a cuck.
Of course.
So that's just a little thing. I think in general...
Do you know what the other masks were?
No,
Okay.
I don't. But they were like sort of similar. They did want Ghostface to be wearing a white robe at one point.
That's a problem.
But then they said no because of the KKK kind of.
That's completely understandable.
It would also just like not be good to be sneaky in a bright white robe.
I think it's also just less scary. That would be
Yeah.
more goofy. Like, oh, who's this weird white guy? He's just floating around. It's
Yeah.
like, no, it's almost scarier having the contrast of like the white face with the black.
I think pretty much everyone in this movie is quite good. I think Dewey's a little dumb. Like he's a little.
Dewey's my
too
favorite
dumb.
character,
He's
though,
a great.
honestly.
He's like a good character, but he's like a little too dumb.
He's a bit too boyish.
Yeah.
Where like,
But he was 24 at one point.
oh yeah, there was a point where I thought that the killer was going to be Dewey and Tatum.
Interesting.
Because there was just a moment where I was like, well, there was a moment pretty early on, maybe like a third through the movie, where I was like, I think that it's a team effort. I don't think it's one person. But then there was a point where I thought it was Dewey and Tatum because I was like, they're siblings.
Yeah.
Dewey's got like access to resources because he's a cop. Tatum's got like a very
Access to
easy way
Sydney.
to get Sydney.
Yeah.
Like there was literally a point where they were living
In the same house?
in the same house. So I was like, this is just all lining up to make this possible. And then Tatum died, and I was like, oh, well, I don't think it's just Dewey.
Yeah. He's a little too dumb.
Yeah.
So here's a reference. I'm going to talk about some references and stuff like that.
Sure.
One reference that I didn't catch, or at least I didn't remember catching, is when the principal goes out and says hi to the janitor.
Yeah.
So that's Wes Craven. That's the director of the movie. And he's dressed up like Freddy Krueger, and he calls him Freddy in the movie.
Well, he calls him Fred, yeah.
Yeah, well, Freddy. So he's like basically saying that that's
Freddy Krueger.
Freddy Krueger, which that was pretty cool. And that's the movie Wes Craven directed.
Yeah,
It's like one of those things where...
That's like a nice, easy little small reference.
It's like when Ant-Man goes up Thanos' ass in that post-credits scene. Loomis's last name was psychologist in Halloween. Tatum says Wes Carpenter, which is Wes Craven mixed with John Carpenter. John Carpenter, who did movies like The Thing. He did the original Halloween, Big Trouble Little China, They Live, Assault on Precinct 13. All classic movies
One
from
more?
the 80s. Escaping New York.
And one more, last one. Here's a challenge.
Ooh, no, not that one. Sorry. Diary of an Invisible Man.
Nice. Proud of you, man.
Yeah, thanks, man. I cummed my pants. Winkler said he wanted to be uncredited as to not detract from the young cast. Winkler at the time was, I think, 74. He wasn't 74 then. I
Not
guess
a
he was
chance
54
74
then.
Yeah.
But I find that funny because... Wait, no, Happy Days was in 74 because I can't read. Remember how I can't read
Yeah,
and I
you
wrote
can't-
Happy Days there?
Yeah.
So Happy Days was in 1974, and he's like, I've still got that heat on me of being the Fonz. So I guess he thinks that he's going to detract from the young cast if he's got a billing, which I don't even think he'd be top billing. He'd be like Drew Barrymore,
Well,
David
speaking of the
Arquette,
billing,
Courtney Cox.
David Arquette, who plays Dewey, was the number one like the first billing.
Yeah. Which kind of makes sense.
But I mean, he's like the sixth most important, maybe seventh most important character.
Yeah, but like of that cast of like semi-famous at
Sure.
that point actors,
I guess it's
young
like
actors.
Bruce Willis being credited first in a movie that has no other known people,
Yeah.
and he has 2 scenes.
Yeah.
I get it. Okay, yeah. Well, that's the
And
that's
Drew
the business,
Barrymore has
baby.
the better credit because it's like, and Drew Barrymore. Like
I
that's,
guess-
I think
true.
that's the most valid. Like there's first credit, top billing, which is a good credit. Middle,
and then you can
and then
do
at the
with
end.
so and so. Yeah.
So Ghost, oh, that's the White Robe. They used 50 gallons of fake blood, which was corn syrup with red dye, like they say in the movie. That's pretty interesting. That's a lot of blood.
Yeah.
50 gallons, that's going to be a lot of blood.
50 gallons. Wait, let me count. That is a little bit more than a pint of Ben and Joey's ice cream.
So here's a little potential recasting.
Okay.
Joaquin Phoenix turned down the role of Billy.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I don't think he would pull off the. I think
he's probably a little creepier than
what's the
Skeet
name?
Ulrich is.
Skeet was the name. I just remember seeing that in the credits. I was like Skeet, and
Skeet,
because
Skeet.
in Andor, the Star Wars show, there's a character named Skeet.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's Skeen. Sorry, I screwed that up. But like, I just remember being like, well, that's certainly a Star Wars name, and then seeing Skeet, and I was like, that's a Star Wars name.
And then here's my last fact. This is a little
Sorry, I was just gonna say, I think that Skeet played like. I feel like if Joaquin Phoenix played Billy, it would have been a bit easier to guess.
yeah. He's got a little bit more of that creep to him. He does.
He
He's the
does.
Joker, baby.
Which is weird because like Billy in the movie has so many moments where he's so obviously creepy.
But Skeet's also like kind of boyish.
Yeah.
And somehow
It
like
feels red herring like.
and somehow like gets away with it in a way,
Mm.
which I don't know why. Like every time I watch it, I'm like, he said something fucked up,
Well, like in
obviously,
the movie store,
but
when
he gets away with
when
it.
Stu is talking to, which actually I'm realizing is like a very telling scene.
Yeah.
When Stu and what's the movie guy's name?
Not Jamie, Randy.
Randy. When Randy and Stu are talking, Randy's like, I think that Billy's the killer, and Stu's like, no,
Yeah.
you're crazy, man.
He's like, in poor taste, if you were the prime suspect in a murder, would you be standing in the horror section?
Yeah. But then Billy comes over and he's like, hey, what are you talking about? And he's like doing the Kubrick stare. He's got greasy hair flowing in front of his face. He's like,
What do you know, I'm not a killer. Yeah.
and it's like, it's almost so on the nose. I think that's why it works. It's almost so on the nose that you're like, there's no way it's Billy.
This can't be him. Yeah.
Which I think kind of makes it
Well,
work.
that's why it
Because they're like
works.
literally talking about how he's the red herring,
Yeah.
but him being the red herring is the red herring. It's incredible.
This guy just mind fucked himself.
My mind's gonna explode.
Jamie Kennedy's character gets a little more heat in the second movie. He gets a little more to play around with because like all of Sydney's other friends are gone.
Yeah.
So he gets to like do a little more stuff. And I think he's really good in that movie.
The two people I wanted to live were him and Dewey.
Yeah.
So I'm glad.
And you get
they
both of them.
did. Yeah. Does Dewey come back
Yeah.
in the other movies?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
There was also a Scream show, which I thought was like kind of good for the time. It's starring. Did you ever watch any of that Reacher show?
I mean, you watched it when we lived together.
Did you see who the cop girl was? The cop woman? She's the star. I think her name's Willa Holland. She's the star of the Scream show. And I watched it in like 2015 and I was like, this is pretty decent. I think if I went back and watched it now, it'd be like a prototype of Riverdale kind of thing.
Okay.
But I don't know. If you like Scream, maybe try that. It's got Ghostface in it. There you go.
Nice.
What did you think about the rules segment where Jamie Kennedy, Randy, lays out the rules in front of the whole party?
Oh, where he's like,
Rule number 1,
I
no
wrote 'em down
sex.
here, yeah.
Rule number 2, no alcohol, no drugs.
rule number 3, never say I'll be right back.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't expect those to be the rules. I thought it was going to be like, rule number 1, always stay in groups. Or
Rule number
something.
1, always be pecking. He pulls out a fucking gun and
Yeah.
shoots someone in the head.
I did really like, we'll go back to the rules thing in 4 seconds. But like, I did really like how when the camera was set up, how he's like watching Halloween and he's like, right behind you, just
Yeah.
look behind you, as he's about to get killed.
Mm-hmm.
And then doesn't, luckily. But I don't know, I just kind of like that.
So my favorite thing about this rule segment after watching like 4 times is just the crowd reactions. Because like, obviously if someone in your party in high school gets up and starts monologuing about shit you shouldn't do, you're going to be like hooting and hollering at them.
Yeah.
You're going to be like yelling and shit. I just like that.
Yeah. Because he's like, no sex. And they're like, oh, fuck you. And then he's like, no alcohol, no drugs. And
And
they
they're
all
like,
start
"Yeah!"
clinking their glasses. They're like, oh, yeah, right.
And then it's like, and don't say I'll be right back. And then Matthew Lillard goes, hey, you want a beer? Yeah, sure. Well, I'll be right back.
I mean, actually, there was a point because Matthew Lillard leaves saying, I'll be right back. And then we don't see him for a while. And then a bunch of people leave.
Yeah.
And at that point, I was like, I
Maybe
think
he
it's
just
him.
left with them? Oh.
No. Because there was a point, because we watched like the end of this together. Watched most of it together. But, nice. But there was a point where I was like, did he leave with them? And you were like, no, I don't think so. And then I was like, okay, then I think it's him.
Yeah.
But I didn't know it was Billy.
The thing about watching this movie, if you've seen it and someone hasn't seen it, it's not like with Halloween, there's no like questions to ask.
Yeah.
But with this one, there's like questions you can ask. So, I've got a couple quotes here.
Sure.
Remember how I inserted a new segment?
Yeah.
Most of them I think are from Matthew Lillard.
Right.
Because Stu is just fucking insane.
Yeah.
Like, okay, sidebar. Matthew Lillard, when he's at his best with like when he's playing Shaggy or when he's playing Stu, is when he's like using his face like he's an animated character.
Yeah.
And that's such a draw. And there's no dude.
You know what? He's very Jim Carrey-esque.
But he's not as like there's something about Jim Carrey that's sort of like malevolent, I guess. I guess not when he's playing The Mask. I don't know. But like, you know what I mean? Where he's like very physical.
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm debating with you when you kind of agreed with me. Let me just say this about Matthew Lilley.
Sure.
I think he's so good. And there's not a person that I've seen in modern movies that could pull off this role. In
Yeah.
Scream 5, Jack Quaid's in it, who's like in The Boys. Yeah. And he's like kind of that, but he's not.
I could see him kind of being able to do that.
He's like a quarter of what Matthew Lillard's doing. But I just like even everyone in this movie pretty much. I don't know if you could recast this movie with actors from today. Like you could have like Sydney Sweeney and as the Drew Barrymore
Timothy
part.
Chalamet could I know we bring him up as
He
the
could
only...
be like-
He could be Billy.
Yeah, I guess.
It wouldn't be as good.
Who like? And there's something about the fact that Matthew Lillard's also just fucking huge too.
Yeah.
compared to everyone.
He's a
Like the
big
part where they're walking after the curfew's instated, and he's like lifting up Rose McGowan, Tatum, and like spinning
Really
her around
easily.
his body, and she's like climbing on him.
Yeah.
Like there's something sort of sweet where you're like, oh, I see why she would like
I
this
just
guy.
realized. Do you think Stu was the one to kill Tatum in the door?
I think it was Billy, because that kill was very like subtle, sort of like. Well, number one, I think Matthew Lillard was by the TV at that point. But number
you're
two,
right.
like when she asks, "Hey, let me pass the door" or whatever, and then he's just like does that little nod. I don't think Stu Ghostface would do that.
Yeah.
I think it's just
he's
like,
very like subtle that
Yeah.
time. Although he does get slammed in the head with a
and in the
fridge door.
cock. Yeah, and he gets a beer in the penis and in the face.
Yeah.
And
But that makes me wonder if it is Stu
mhm.
because he's being so gentle with her initially until she
Maybe.
like starts to chuck shit at him.
Yeah, maybe.
Anyway,
I don't know.
that's
I
up
have to
for debate.
rewatch it. I have to track it.
Yeah, I just think that's an interesting thought.
So, now to the segment that I started 2.5 minutes
Yeah,
ago.
my apologies.
First quote.
Actually, I said my apologies. It was mostly just you ranting about loving Matthew Lillard, but continue.
He's so good in this movie.
He is good.
I'm feeling woozy here.
Classic.
Classic.
You've pulled that out about 5 times in the past
Yeah.
day, so it's definitely a good one.
Well, it's because I'm sick. Violently sick.
Like ill.
Sick with it. What does this say? Oh. At the end when he's on the phone. These are mostly from when he's like after he's been stabbed, because that's like
Yeah.
a lot of those lines are just fucking great.
Yeah.
But when he's on the phone and then Billy takes it and then tosses the phone back at him, he's like, fucking threw the phone at me, dick, or fucking hit me with the phone, dick.
Yeah.
It's like, that's great. Love
I wonder
that.
if that was like in the script or whether he actually just threw it at his head and he's like, all right.
I know Jamie Kennedy got a lot of leeway with like what he could do and like how his performance could be, and like, because Wes Craven does have a bit of a comic sensibility to him. It doesn't come through as much in some of the earlier stuff like Nightmare on Elm Street too. It doesn't really come through there. But those actors are also like kind of bad. I just recently watched Nightmare on Elm Street, the first one with Hillary, and it's like, it's fine.
Yeah.
The acting is just like bad. What else? Oh, when Sydney says she called the police, and he's like, my mom and dad are gonna be so mad at me, and he's
Yeah,
like,
because he says it
crying.
so like earnestly.
Yeah.
It's not him being like, because a lot of the time when she says anything, he kind of taunts her like,
Yeah.
oh no. But in that, he's genuinely like, oh, my parents are gonna be mad.
He's like, yeah, you've killed 6 people. What are you talking about?
Well, they're not going to be disappointed in him if they don't know, I think, is his psychotic
guess.
perspective.
Yeah. And then when I think he's about to kill Sydney. I feel weird saying Sid. 'cause
I mean,
we
they
know
call her
Sid.
Sid all the
Yeah.
time.
But then he's like, I always had a thing for you, Sid. Like, that's like, oh, interesting. That's a weird dynamic. Because you
Weird
can
thing to just
kind
throw
of
in
tell,
there.
like, Matthew Lillard's kind of, like, playing that at some points in the movie.
Yeah.
And if you rewatch it, you might get that a little more, where it's like, Matthew Lillard's he's like that guy in your friend group where it's like, he's got a girlfriend, but, like, he's also a bit of a skeezer.
I'm joking.
I'm engaged.
Hey, I'm joking, man. That was.
I'm not a
bit.
skeezer.
Hey, that was a joke.
What have I done that
Hey, that was a joke.
skeezed? I killed like 6 or 7 people in a convoluted way.
I mean, I didn't expect to wake up in bed last night with Olivia and see you at the end of the bed sucking on my toes.
Yeah, like a little puppy. You know when when the TV falls on Stu?
Yeah.
I had that happen to me when I was a young boy.
What?
Yeah, and it was one of those big TVs too.
Did it hurt?
Yeah. The TV was in this like
Yeah.
the TV was in this like cabinet thing.
Sure.
So
as
there's
they all were, for the most part.
So there was the TV on the top, and then there's a bottom section that had like DVDs and shit and PlayStation, whatever in there. And I was sitting there as like, maybe I was 5 or 6. And I was kicking it. I was pushing it because it would rock back and forth. I was pushing it with my feet as I watched TV. You like how I'm acting it out?
Yeah.
And then it fucking fell on me, man. Man. It fell on me, man. And
do you think it has the potential to kill someone in the way it did Stu?
oh yeah,
Okay.
that could easily kill someone because those things were like 50 fucking pounds.
Yeah. I mean, I have one that's like 1 by 1 foot big.
And it's like 20
those
pounds.
two TVs. It's heavier than my flat screen TV.
Yeah, it's silly. But that happened to me, and that would probably explain quite a bit.
Actually, now that you say that, you're probably right.
So you kind of figured out the killer as you were watching the movie.
I
you
did,
had
but
inklings.
I wasn't sure. I was just kind of
Yeah.
like, he hasn't been around.
What did you think of the final wrap-up chase thing?
Like the chase,
Like the final-
or like by the time they reveal
Like when they
themselves?
reveal who they are, like what'd you think of that whole
I liked it
section?
a lot, actually.
I think it's one of the better like killer reveals.
Yeah, because I think a lot of these movies kind of fall apart once the secret's revealed, because then you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like kind of in any whodunit
Mhm.
horror kind of. But I don't know. It works because you're still kind of like, but why?
Yeah.
And what?
And
like,
even though they give a sort of reason, you're like, really? You're like blaming all this shit on her mom because she had sex with your dad and your mom left? And even Stu doesn't know that. You can tell Stu didn't know that.
yeah, I think Stu just likes killing. I think he thinks
Yeah.
it's fun. Which, like, even Billy says, he's like, they never really figured out why Hannibal Lecter ate people.
Yeah.
Some people just like to do things.
Mhm.
And it's like, well, find a new thing, probably.
And I like going back to that video store scene
Yeah.
when when they asked Jamie Kennedy what his motivation would be, and he's like, it's the millennium. You don't need a motivation. And then Billy's like, oh, yeah, the millennium. That's a interesting line or good word. And you're like, maybe he took that from then?
Maybe. That's a good point.
Does this make you want to watch the other Scream movies?
I mean, it makes me open to it. Like, I really had no interest or, like, no drive to watch any Scream movie before this. But now watching it, I think that I'd be open to it.
I think the thing that makes this one different is the violence isn't like it's graphic, I guess, but it's not overly gory in any of the Scream movies.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like one of those franchises where the goriness of the kill is the big thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like the kills being kind of cool and interesting is a bit of a thing. But that's like in Halloween, it's like, oh, that's a fucked up kill.
Yeah.
Like there's one in the new Halloween where Michael Myers cuts a radio DJ's tongue off, and then it goes onto his record player, and then the record player's like skipping and whatever. So like then people listening to the radio in the movie hear that. Where it's like, oh, that's a cool creative kill. Like that's more of a like Halloween kind of thing.
Yeah.
Whereas Scream is more of like the whodunit kind of thing.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, it's more just like they're just killing.
Yeah. So I would recommend you watch the other Screams.
Okay, well, we'll see.
And Jenna
I
Ortega,
got a lot of movies to watch these days.
They're like all. Actually, I guess this one's 2 hours. They're all under 2 hours though,
Okay.
which is kind of nice. Who's your favorite character?
Probably Dewey.
Yeah,
I like
that makes
Dewey
sense.
a lot.
You're a Dew boy.
I'm a Dewey guy. I just think he's a wholesome boy. Randy is runner up.
I like Randy a lot
Because
Randy's
those are
better
the
in
only two characters that have even a pinch of empathy in the whole movie.
Randy's better in later movies.
Nice. Okay. Well, yeah. I could. He's very much just the. Listen, man. I don't know what to tell you. This is just what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Like that kind of character.
Mhm.
And I think it works. I also just think that Sydney as the main character is pretty good.
Yeah, I think she's a very effective like protagonist.
Favorite line from her is at the end when Randy's like, this is the moment where the killer
Comes
turns out
back
to
to
not be
life.
dead, and then he
Yeah.
wakes up for a second and she shoots him and she goes, not in my movie. And I'm like, oh my goodness. Because they really like tried to hammer home the everyone's talking about what horror movies are like.
Yeah.
And this is a horror movie. And I just think that was like a very corny but very like
There's some stuff I want to tell you about
satisfying.
Scream 2 that I
Don't
think you'd
do
really
it.
like, but I'm not going to. Does this make you interested in like watching other horror movies, other horror franchises, like Final Destination, or like?
No, I have no interest in the Final Destination
Okay,
movies.
I think I've seen all of them.
I don't know. I'm just not really a horror guy. Especially watching them alone. I have no interest in watching a horror movie alone. And like when you and I watched Scream together, it just so happened to be in the like middle of the day.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I'm not sure I would have loved watching that right before I go to sleep.
Why don't you grow a pair of nuts?
Well, because I'm allergic.
Are you?
No, I'm not allergic
Oh.
to. I'm actually not allergic to anything
Because I've been like
except weakness.
dunking my tongue in your peanut butter jar.
I thought you were gonna say penis.
Why would I say that?
I've been
man?
dunking my tongue in your penis.
Man, you're a little saw.
Can I just say one other thing before we wrap up? Or like before you wrap up your questions?
We'll see.
Two things actually. One, there's a weird nipple shot that you and I talked about very briefly off pod, where Tatum doesn't really
when she's getting killed.
yeah, she has no, like, you don't see her nipples, or at least they're not noticeable.
No, she
For the
doesn't have hard
enti-
nipples for the entire movie.
Yeah, for the entire film, and then there's a close-up shot of her opening the garage door before she
And
gets
she's
killed,
like,
and they're
nipples
just
are
like
hard like diamonds in an ice storm.
they're like 12-inch screws,
Yeah.
and it's just like it was very clearly the focus of that shot, and I don't know, it's just
Now,
very
I think-
weird. I didn't love that.
I think it's sort of a thing where like the old horror movies, that character type is getting killed when she's naked, generally.
Well, because that feels like a very like weird fetish thing.
Like in Halloween, Tatum is getting killed when she's having sex.
Yeah.
So, and like no one really has sex in this movie.
No,
Like Sydney and Billy do for like you see the start
and then
and you see the end.
But like within that, I think it's like 10 minutes.
Yeah. But even then, it's not like they're fucking. But in like those older horror movies, the thing was like, oh, these teens are gonna go have sex, and they're gonna get fucking killed.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing. Where like Friday the 13th isn't quite this, but like it's sort of soft core, where like one of the main things is the sex.
Sure.
Halloween, that's not quite it, but like there's Laurie's friend who is sort of the Tatum character is like killed while she's after having sex with her boyfriend
Yeah.
in a kind of a interesting, like a funny way. But
Yeah.
and he's taking a be real. Let me take my cock out real quick. If you want us to be real, I gotta take my peener out, Papa.
I just took my B-reel and it has Calder actually holding his entire penis in his hand.
So Adam Driver.
Yeah. I had a second thing to say. It's the last thing. Truly the last thing. The camera guy who's in the van.
Oh, yeah?
I hate when he dies.
I think we should talk about Courtney Cox as well.
Sure. But can I say the cameraman thing first? I just hate how he sees the killer about to kill
Someone in the camera.
someone in the kill Randy in the camera, and then he has to open the door to look at the house and sees that the front door is open.
No, I think he was gonna go help him. So he was going to get out of the van.
Oh, but then
and
he goes 30-second delay. It's too late.
Yeah,
But then why does he open the door the second time?
the second time.
Because then he closes the door. He says 30-second delay, closes the door, watches, and then they see Ghostface leave the room.
No, he doesn't close the door there. He opens the door and he's standing outside and he looks back in. And then he turns again and Ghostface is at the side of the van and slices him.
Okay, but still, it was the moment. So 2 reasons that I didn't like it. 1,
You like that guy?
well, sure, but that's not one of the 2 things. 1,
Okay, sorry.
I just feel like if you see him turn around and leave in the feed, you try to get away as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Like the second you see him start to turn around, you go, okay, we got to like make sure we're safe.
But his instinct is to try and help him.
Sure. Maybe he's a better guy than I am.
Yep.
Second thing, I just hate it. We kind of talked about this in the Kimmy episode, actually. I just hate it anytime a protagonist is so close to just like succeeding or getting help or being safe, and then like at the absolute last millisecond they are not, and they're in grave danger again.
So
I know that's how movies work, but it's just very frustrating.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's a bad part of the
Okay.
movie. I'm just saying I hate it because
Yeah.
it makes me feel scared.
Courtney Cox.
Courtney Cox.
She does this sort of in the Friends era to try and change her image from like Monica Geller to being more of like a nasty act, like being like she wants to play like the, and I think this is a direct quote, like the bitchy character.
Okay.
Where like she's not just like clean cut, let me keep my apartment clean, whatever. She wants to be like a bad person and like show
Sure.
people she can play that, so she doesn't just get
A baddie.
typecast. And I think she's quite good in this.
Yeah, I think she's good. I hate her.
Yeah, of course. But like that character of Gail Weathers is like very interesting because it's like,
I don't think she's a bad person.
No.
But I think she just has very corrupted priorities.
but even then, like she is trying to get someone she believes is innocent off like the fucking chair.
But she's trying to get an innocent person off the chair for her book sales.
Yes.
Like, so I think she's a character who very much is doing the right things for the wrong reasons.
Yeah. And I like, I don't know. I just think it's like very telling as to like where we are now as like a earth and like a society and like a people as to where we are now. Like it's very like, wow. Like you're like, what's happening and who's going where and what are we doing to help to save and help and protect the people who are around and sort of adjacent to things that are red, yellow, orange, green, blue, you know, another purple, and it's like, in what way do we find the way to solve climate change? Now I think Adam Driver could be a good Billy Loomis.
You think he'd be a good Billy?
Yeah, I don't know if he has the thing to be Stu. I think Stu is body typecasting.
No, definitely not Stu. Who was I? There was someone who I was
Dewey?
like, oh yeah, I think he'd be a good Dewey.
He kind of plays Dewey in The Dead Don't Die. Have you seen that one?
I have not seen The Dead Don't Die.
It's like okay, but he kind of plays Dewey. But also he's like trying to fuck Selena Gomez.
That's a little weird.
Yeah. But it's an interesting movie.
Not weird for Adam Driver, weird for the movie.
Yeah. Maybe we'll do that one. That's an interesting movie. That'll be a very highly watched episode.
Oh yeah. But I don't know. I just think that I think he would do a good Dewey just because I think he plays a good like
sort of aloof guy.
Yeah, he plays a good like
he plays a good everything. He's like literally one of the only good movie star character actors.
Honestly,
I guess
think
Dave Bautista.
I think he's actually one of the only good actors ever.
It's probably like him and who's that other guy? And he does, you know, throw out names.
Robert Downey Jr.
No, and he likes to
Daniel Day-Lewis.
look around the camera, but not quite in it. Like that one,
Jared
where he's
Leto.
like sort of on the camera but off.
Jim Carrey.
Cary Grant.
Kelsey Grammer.
No,
Okay.
I think Kelsey Grammer's like racist or something.
I wouldn't be surprised.
What
That's
are
a
you
weird thing
doing?
to say about someone.
What are you doing, Squidward?
What?
What are you doing, Squidward?
Why are you calling me Squidward? Is it because I had my nose against the mic? Yeah.
Adam was pushing his mic on his nose like he was a little squid boy.
Okay, so here's what we're going to talk about now is the ranking.
Gee, man.
This is going to be a rough one for you.
Uh,
I say you start on this one. And be honest.
let's look. It's at least
Oh, no.
above Kimmy.
Are you being serious?
Kind of, man. Like, is there a part of this movie that drags?
I think there's a period after they arrest Billy, but before the party.
Where that quarantine section
Yeah.
drags a bit? That's like
A little bit.
5 minutes.
Here's the thing. I will say this, though. It seems like very often when we're debating placement on a movie, it comes down to whether an act dragged or not. Like, Kimmy, John Wick, About Time, 10 Things, like all of those movies we debate. Like, what ultimately makes it go above or below something is whether it dragged.
Yeah.
And I think we should just take. I'm just saying we should take more than that into consideration. I'll put it above Kimmy.
Oh my God.
I mean, the main thing for me is like I personally, Adam Cook,
Yeah.
don't think that it's like I don't like it more than About Time, John Wick, or Turning Red, or even the Batman.
Yeah.
But I do think that this movie is like, even watching it, there were a couple moments where I'd be like, whoa, that's an iconic moment.
Yeah.
Even though I'm watching it like 30 years later almost.
But there's a lot of stuff that's like, it mixes the tones very well of like scary and funny and sort of frivolous because it's a teen comedy at the same time.
I wouldn't watch this again
Really?
without anyone else.
Okay.
Like, I think if I were to watch this again, I'd need other people there. But like, if I was with people and they said, you want to watch Scream, I'd be down.
You're kind of like a huge scaredy cat, huh?
No, I just like don't see. I wouldn't be like, what's to enjoy if I'm by myself?
The movie.
Yeah, but I've seen it. So like,
You've never rewatched a movie alone?
rarely.
Interesting. So like the second one. Would
Sure.
you watch it
Sure.
alone?
With people? No, probably not alone.
Why? Because you're scared,
I
or
just don't
why?
have much interest.
Because you're scared.
Unless you made it a part of the pod, and then I have to.
Scream timber. Scream timber.
Can I be fully honest
Yeah.
here? I think Kimmy's placement. Maybe I just need to watch Kimmy again. But Kimmy's placement is kind of what's.
I was looking at the list and I was like, I feel like Turning Red should be higher.
Yeah.
So maybe we get 6 months in, we can do a reshuffle. We're in like, what is this? We're 4 months in.
Yeah.
In another 2 months, we do a little reshuffle.
Or should we just do after a year we reanalyze the list, move things around?
That's going to be a lot of movies to move around.
That's
though.
true. Yeah, but I don't think we're going to want to move every movie around. Like, I look at the bottom of the list, Hardcore Henry, That Awkward Moment, Weird, The Al Yankovic Story. Like, those
We
I
don't
wanna
have to move everything around. But
We'll just say at some point
Just
we
a
might
reevaluation.
reevaluate this
Yeah.
list and move things around. But there is a part of me that's like, we should just leave it as is, not touch it. Because then it's like the initial feelings right as we're recording the episode, that's where we're putting them.
I think we can catalog that though.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. We'll figure something out. But as of right now,
Put it 5th?
how would you feel about putting it 6th? Under Kimmy, above About Time.
But like, is it better than Kimmy? Do you like this movie more than Kimmy? Is it more entertaining than Kimmy?
I guess, yeah.
So then why is it not above Kimmy?
Because, well, this is why I'm saying, like, the Kimmy placement is kind of screwing me up. Because
You like About
all
Time
the things
and all
below
that?
Not I like more than Scream. But
I know,
like
but we're not
Scream more
reevaluating today.
Yeah. Okay,
we have to
fine.
rank it on the list as the list is.
Yeah, but if I'm averaging that out, there's 3 movies that I like more than Scream.
So I think Kimmy got up there because it's better made,
Sure.
kind of, than the other ones. And the script is a little tighter. It's a lot quicker. Like the other ones are like 2 hours long. Turning Red's not. But it's a little quicker than the other ones. That's like why it got up there. More for like the making of it, not the like of it.
I think a lot of it was probably because
And we like
that was
Zoe
in the same
Kravitz.
month we watched The Batman.
Yeah.
And we did also like Zoe Kravitz. But like when we watched The Batman, we were just like raging about like movie runtime.
Yeah.
So I think Kimmy being like tight was like really positive. I'm not down on Kimmy. I still love Kimmy,
No,
and I think
yeah.
it deserves to be high up there. So I'm fine to put Scream at 5 above Kimmy. You
We'll talk
pressured me.
reeval, like when a reeval episode after this.
Sure.
Not like directly after this, obviously, but like I think that is something that we can be open to doing.
Sure, but I think we should limit it. I
Yeah.
don't think it should be like let's shuffle the whole list around.
No.
But maybe like we each choose a movie or two that we're
that
like
we think we should
placement
replace.
be different.
Yeah.
Cool.
Wow. So we've shared, we've laughed,
We've screamed.
and we've loved. Adam Cook, nice to see you.
Calder Amy Wood.
This was needless to say, uninteresting one. And I don't know how to end this, man.
Dude, I feel like my eyes are falling out of my head.
Why? Tired?
I don't know. This whole episode, I felt like I'm in a
I've been
different realm.
I've been kind of on one as well.
You know what I think it probably is? The Kraft Dinner and Chicken Fingers.
I think it's probably the 12-minute NBA 2K
Yeah.
quarters we just played.
We ate Kraft Dinner and Chicken Fingers and then played 12-minute quarter NBA 2K game and then jumped right into this podcast. I think that was a bad
And
idea.
I think we're
energy-wise.
Zoinked up.
All right. Well, thanks for listening. We should probably start saying this,
What?
but like it'd be cool if you like followed the podcast.
Oh yeah, or like left
and
a review.
Yeah, left a review, rated it on Spotify.
I say not every episode we say that, but once
we
in a
should
while
say
we'll
it
just do a
more.
little reminder.
Cause like it'd be cool if people followed the podcast.
If you're listening to the pod and you like it, give it a 5
And if
star
you
and it'll probably
wanna
help us out.
Give me money for like anything. Like I'll do anything.
Yeah, me too, but it's more like you'll have to send it like cash in envelope.
Oh, of course. Like you
unmarked as
contact
well.
me, we set up a drop.
Yeah.
And at that drop, I may or may not have called the police and told them that you're a drug dealer.
Yeah, well,
You drop the duffel bag. I go over and pick it up.
You're giving our whole operation away.
No, it's because
No, just cut it off.
it's parody.
I'll cut this out.
It's like when those rappers say they killed someone.
Oh,
It's like artistic license.
okay.
Except for that one guy that actually did kill someone, and they made a whole song about it.
that
made
one
a whole
guy.
Wine Be Melly. Where's that? Yellow Dipper on his
YMCA.
body. It's a fucking homicide. You ever heard that song? It's insane.
Oh, and then the chorus goes YMCA.
It's from the murder at YMCA. Thanks for listening to the pod. You got everything. You sign out. You
Swimming through
have
the pool is
Oh, man.
filled with blood.
Jeez. I needed you to end the pod while I was doing it, man. You're gonna have to edit the end of this thing. We've gone for 7 extra minutes.